Fortinet NSE 440.7.0 NSE 4_FGT 7.0 exam actual questions are valuable for you to pass easily. 1. Which two statements are correct regarding FortiGate HA cluster virtual IP addresses? Choose 2. A. Heartbeat interfaces have virtual IP addresses that are manually assigned. B. A change in the virtual IP address happens when a FortiGate device joins or leaves the cluster. C. Virtual IP addresses are used to distinguish between cluster members. D. The primary device in the cluster is always assigned IP address 169.254.0.1. 2. Which two actions can you perform only from the root FortiGate in a security fabric? Choose 2. A. Shut down, reboot a downstream FortiGate device. B. Disable FortiAnalyzer logging for a downstream FortiGate device. C. Log into a downstream FortiSwitch device. D. Ban or unban compromised hosts. 3. What devices form the core of the security fabric? A. 2 FortiGate devices and 1 FortiManager device. B. 1 FortiGate device and 1 FortiManager device. C. 2 FortiGate devices and 1 FortiAnalyzer device. D. 1 FortiGate device and 1 FortiAnalyzer device. 4. Which of the following conditions must be met in order for a web browser to trust a web server certificate signed by a third-party CA? A. The public key of the web server certificate must be installed on the browser. B. The web server certificate must be installed on the browser. C. The CA certificate that signs the web server certificate must be installed on the browser. D. The private key of the CA certificate that signs the browser certificate must be installed on the browser. 5. Which statements are true regarding firewall policy NAT using the outgoing interface IP address with fixed port disabled? Choose 2. A. This is known as many-to-one NAT. B. Source IP is translated to the outgoing interface IP. C. Connections are tracked using source port and source MAC address. D. Port address translation is not used. 6. Which feature in the security fabric takes one or more actions based on event triggers? A. Fabric connectors. B. Automation stitches. C. Security rating. D. Logical topology. 7. An organization's employee needs to connect to the office through a high-latency Internet connection. Which SSL VPN setting should the administrator adjust to prevent the SSL VPN negotiation failure? A. Change the session TTL. B. Change the login timeout. C. Change the idle timeout. D. Change the UDP idle timer. 8. Which two types of traffic are managed only by the management VDOM? Choose 2. A. FortiGuard web filter queries. B. PKI. C. Traffic shaping. D. DNS. 9. Which two statements are correct about a software switch on FortiGate? Choose 2. A. It can be configured only when FortiGate is operating in NAT mode. B. Can act as a Layer 2 switch as well as a Layer 3 router. C. All interfaces in the software switch share the same IP address. D. It can group only physical interfaces. 10. FortiGate is configured as a policy-based next-generation firewall, NGFW, and is applying web filtering and application control directly on the security policy. Which two other security profiles can you apply to the security policy? Choose 2. A. Antivirus scanning. B. File filter. C. DNS filter. D. Intrusion prevention.